Hello everyone, good afternoon. How are you all? Welcome to the platform of Evolution Educare, and we are doing modern Indian history. So, any doubt from the previous lecture? As of now, we are on class number 4, and we have already completed class number 1, 2, and 3, in which we have not only talked about later Mughals but also how this vast Mughal empire disintegrated, declined, what were the causes. We talked about the foreign invasions, and we also talked about the rise of the regional kingdoms. So, any doubt from the previous lecture, please feel free to ask. This would be the last demo lecture, that is the open lecture for all of the YouTube section, and from Monday onwards, we would be continuing with the ऐप वर्जन. तो जिसको भी इस कोर्स में पार्टिसिपेट करना है, इफ यू वांट टू एनरोल इन दिस कोर्स, यू आर फ्री to call on the numbers that are given on the website of Evolution Educare. You can reach out to the team and you can participate in the course. Any doubt from the previous lecture? बताइए. Have you revised? Have you gone through the previous lecture and the material that is being provided? If you have not, or if you have done it, let us take a flashback. Flashback of what we have did till now. We started from the later Mughals. We started from the later Mughals. That how, after death of Aurangzeb, that happened in 1707, the Mughal empire disintegrated. The Mughal empire disintegrated due to different causes. Some causes were political in nature, some were administrative causes, some were external causes. There were economical causes as well, and there were religious and cultural causes as well. Can you tell me the different causes that led to the disintegration of the Mughals? Very good afternoon. We saw that how there was weak successors, nobles were getting corrupt, there were foreign invasions, there was decline in the economy, and there was religious orthodoxy. ठीक है? And this whole thing gave rise to what? Rise of regional kingdom. ठीक है? Rise of regional kingdoms, in which we saw that these regional kingdoms were of three nature. Can you tell me what were the three categories? First, we saw the new states, which were also known as insurgent states. Examples: Jats, Marathas, Sikh. Then we saw the independent states. इंडिपेंडेंट स्टेट्स में हमने कौन से स्टेट्स देखे? वी टॉक्ड अबाउट त्रावणकोर, मार्तंड वर्मा, केरला. वी टॉक्ड अबाउट राजपूत्स, and we also talked about Mysore, Hyder Ali and Tipu Sultan. And finally, we talked about the successor states. The states which paid obedience to the Mughal emperors, but gradually they got autonomy and independence. Successor states were among the those that were made subas or the provinces from the time of Akbar. And most importantly, we saw here that how some important successor states were Hyderabad, Awadh, and Bengal. This is a brief history or a brief flashback of what all things we have done till now in the three sessions. Inside these things, we have done some important dynasties, some important kingdoms, and their contributions. And gradually, as we move forward, we would be also talking about the advent of Europeans, that in which order the Europeans came to India, what were the main causes which led to the power vacuum, which we have already seen, that how there were some internal strife between the kingdoms itself, and there is a very good topic or a line that we talk about. You might have heard about this as well. I will tell you this thing, that history is a series of victories won by scientific man over romantic man. This is an essay topic. ये एक essay का topic है that appeared into the UPSC examination few years back, and it is very well said, और ये यहाँ पर apt भी होता है. The Britishers, the Europeans, who were more focused upon the reasoning, who were more focused upon the logic, reason, and knowledge, they defeated the Indian Mughal empires, Mughals, Marathas, Nawabs, because they were more inclined towards passion, emotions, etc. Because they were more focused upon who will rule, who will replace the earlier Nawab, they wanted power. We saw in the time of Mughals that when the nobles got power, they were in a position, they were in a intention to replace the Mughal emperors. So they were not focusing upon the greater goal of 100 to 100 years from then. They were just focused upon the immediate relief or immediate power. So this is a very apt line that fits our whole history. Wherever you go in the history, there are cases when we have logic, when we have reasoning, when we have a fundamental cause for fighting something, the scientific man wins over the romantic man. And this we have seen through our entire discussion in class 1, 2 and 3. Today also there was essay paper conducted by UPSC, and some similar themes which we have observed in the previous lectures, वही वो हैं themes जो repeat हुए with different topics. We would be discussing them soon, but let us take a look at what we will discuss today. Any doubts from the previous lecture? और यहाँ से कोई doubt हो? I hope you are able to clear all the doubts from here. कोई भी doubt है पुराना तो आप पूछ सकते हो. Else, let us start with our today's class, in which we will talk about beginning of European settlements in India. Beginning of European settlements in India. So the first thing that we need to remember or we need to focus upon is here, that in which order Europeans entered into India. सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चन तो यही बनता है that in which order Europeans came to India. तो इसके लिए एक छोटा सिंपल सा निमोनिक है PD BDF, where P stands for Portuguese, as we can see here itself. The D stands for Dutch, the B stands for British, or somewhere you can call it as English as well. This D stands for Danes, yani Danish, and final F stands for French. This thing you need to remember because in simple questions in the prelims examination, this is asked that arrange these in the order in which they came. Either it can be match the following or a simple order who came first. So we know that it was 1498 when Vasco da Gama found a route to Calicut, or we can say India, and he became the first European to trade with India in the form of Portuguese were there. Then Dutch came to India in 1602, and finally Britishers came to India or established their presence in 1608. A point to remember that the Dutch East India Company was formed later than the British East India Company. British East India Company got the royal decree, or you can say the royal agreement from the Queen at that time in the 1600 itself. Despite the fact the British came later than the Dutch. This is the thing that you need to remember. Then Danish came in 1616, and the last to come were French in 1664. This is an important thing that you need to remember. ये आपको अच्छे से ध्यान रखना होगा. ठीक है? Any doubt still here? Now, if we talk about the arrival of Europeans, how this led to a new era in trade, we need to remember that when the Europeans started coming in, starting from 1498 May, Vasco da Gama entered into India through Calicut. The simple fact was that they wanted to trade with India. They wanted to trade with India. By that time, in the Europe, there was a form of Renaissance. Do you understand the meaning of Renaissance? Means Renaissance is that period in the history of humanity where we started to question, where we started to find new things, new discoveries were happening in the form of a scientific revolution, in the literature, art, painting. Means it is a period of rebirth. So Europe was going towards a period of a rebirth, and in that period, the trading companies developed which wanted to have more profit, more money. And the kings of that period allowed these trading companies to trade with not only the Europe but also to the Indian countries or the Asian countries. And that was a form जहां पर इन सभी यूरोपियन कंट्रीज में एक रेस स्टार्ट हुई टू reach to the Asian countries because they were aware that Asian countries had spices, had different sort of commodities which could be traded back to the Europe in huge profits. And among them, Portuguese were the first. And among them, Portuguese were the first. They knew that the Europeans were having rich amount of bullions. Bullions means the silver, gold. They were having these materials. And in exchange of these materials, they were taking back spices, some cotton products, etc. And when they took these products to back to the Europe, they were selling them at a very huge profitable rates. Okay. Now Indian rulers were tolerating these trades because it was a fact that they were just traders and Indian rulers were getting benefit from them by just selling some spices which is present in a large amount in India. They were getting huge amount of wealth. So earlier on, Indian rulers were okay with it. Like, yes, they are just traders. We have been trading with the foreign nations in the ancient period of Harappa. Then what is wrong with it? But slowly and gradually, these European companies are starting to claim territories into Indian subcontinent, be it in India or apart from India in the Asian countries. They started to claim. Then the rulers realized that they were not just traders. They were not just the traders. They were here to claim the territories and to colonize us. Then they started together, but still we could not have a united effort to fight against them, and that was the fact that slowly and gradually the Britishers were victorious among these Europeans and they were able to get control over the Diwani rights as we saw in the Battle of Plassey 1757 and also Battle of Buxar 1764. So we will be talking about these things only, that how there were conflict among the European powers and how we moved forward. ठीक है. Talking about the arrival of Europeans जो हमने बात करी है, that Vasco da Gama came to Calicut in 1498. He was welcomed by King Zamarin, who was a Hindu king present at that time. Now, Portuguese were the pioneers. They started to trade with India. In spices with India. And they were followed by different European companies, as we saw, followed by Dutch, Britishers, Danes and French. ठीक है. Other European trading companies which were focusing on profit found route to India. जैसे कि ये सब. And also earlier their activities were confined to the port cities, the cities which are around the ports. ठीक है. And their main focus was exchanging Indian goods in return to bullions, gold and silver. Indian goods को bullions में exchange करके they took all these spices and they get good profits. इससे क्या हो रहा था? Indian rulers were fine. India's economy were boosting. इंडिया की इकोनॉमी को बूस्ट हो रहा था तो कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं थी. इंडियन रूलर्स tolerated overall these activities because they were getting benefits. They benefited from this trade. Benefited from this trade. However, as gradually all the European companies started to trade, the conflict arose. Because there was a conflict that who will get more amount of trade from India, because India was एक तरीके से treasure for all of them. जब treasure के पास पहला इंसान पहुंचता है तो he gets all the treasure. But as when more people gets to the treasure, they start fighting with each other. ऐसा ही कुछ यहाँ पे हुआ. When Portuguese came, there was no competitors in the form of who were comparable to the Portuguese. There were Arab merchants who were just good at the sea in sailing the ships, but not at fighting with the European powers. But as and when we saw Dutch, British, Danes and French, the problem started. There was conflicts among these people. And why was this conflict? For trade dominance. Plus territorial control. These were the major issues of conflict, and the French were the first. French were the first in the form of that they attempted to have the territorial expansion on a large scale, but eventually it was the British East India Company who got success. They were first in claiming the territories, but British East India Company excelled, and slowly they expelled all other European powers from India, and they established the British rule in India. So we have to talk about that as well. But why was this all happening? Why was there a surge in all those things? Note it down. क्या आपने नोट कर लिया है ये? Anything that you want to ask here? If you have noted down, please tell. ठीक है. Now this was all happening, as I told you, that Europe में जो 14th 15th century थी, it saw a period of renaissance. Rather than having in this, let us take a new slide itself before that. Europe in 14th 15th century. What was happening at that time? Europe was going through a period of renaissance, which is known as rebirth. In the form of, there was starting of industrial revolution, printing press, steam engine. Then there was scientific revolution. The people like Galileo Galilei, he was talking about heliocentric Earth. Means sun is center and all other planets are revolving around it. Then there was intellectual revolt, intellectual development in the form of Voltaire, Rousseau, who were questioning the polity and religious groups of that time. Because at that time, the church was all the powerful. चर्च ही वहां पर रिलीजन कंट्रोल करता था और चर्च ही वहां पर जो पॉलिटिकल एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन है वो कंट्रोल करता था. So they were questioning all those things, and this was a period of renaissance. And through this period itself, there was economic capitalism as well. Capitalism. And capitalism is a concept which talks about making profits, and they realized that Asian countries were rich in resources. Why not go there and trade with them? ठीक है, that's why trade routes search started. Trade route search started. This led to the trade route search. The kings, the rulers were going towards the seas to explore more trade routes to the Asian countries, and they were having the adventurers, seafarers who will go and represent them, find new ways to reach different countries, and the prominence or the greatness of that king was believed to the extent to which they can go. ठीक है, scientific curiosity हो, intellectual development, these all things culminated to this thing. जब हम world history पढ़ेंगे, when we will be talking about world history, We will talk about these things in more detail, that what was the causes of Renaissance, what led to Enlightenment, how does modernity arises in Europe, and these things. ठीक है, पर यह है कि हमें आखिर रीजन क्या था, what was the reason? This should be known by you. Many books, many things skip this part and they directly skip और reach to the point जब वहां पर बात करते हैं कि यूरोपियंस आए, पोर्टुगीज, ये वो, बट रीजन क्या था? Why they were coming to India? Why they were coming to Asia? How the world was divided? How people believed of that time कि यूरोपियंस ने खुद एक ट्रीटी करी जिसको ट्रीटी ऑफ टॉर्डेसिलास बोलते हैं. We will be talking about that in a few minutes. They divided the whole world बिना किसी की परमिशन के, बिना किसी से पूछे कि वेस्ट में आप ट्रेड करिएगा, ईस्ट में हम ट्रेड करेंगे. तो यूरोपियन पावर्स वर इन अ फॉर्म ऑफ बिलीफ दैट they are more developed. They have a duty to give or impart education, ethics to different world and different part of world. They had a white man syndrome, or you can say white man burden. ये concept है white man burden कि जो ethical एक concept है, racial concept है, that white men are more developed than the other people in the world. So they have a responsibility to give education, to tell how to be civilized to other people of the world. So ये एक religious mission था, Christian mission था. Even जो वहाँ पे उस टाइम पे पोप थे, उन्होंने स्टार्ट किया था that there is a religious message that we need to spread in entire world. So go and found the trade routes and establish your rule there. ठीक है. But to have this thing, you need to have a path to the Asian countries. So in the earlier ages, when Europe was doing eastern trade, there were basically, in the Middle Ages, there were three major trade routes. There were three major trade routes which connected Europe to India and Southeast Asia. You should be having a good knowledge about these three trade routes कि वास्को डी गामा के आने से पहले कैसे पहुंचा जाता था इंडिया, और कैसे लैंड को अवॉइड करके ऑल सी रूट वास्को डी गामा ने डिस्कवर किया. द फर्स्ट रूट वाज पर्शियन गल्फ रूट. एज द नेम सजेस्ट, दिस सी रूट वाज थ्रू पर्शियन गल्फ. ठीक है, थ्रू पर्शियन गल्फ, देन ओवरलैंड इराक, एंड देन फाइनली टू वेनिस एंड जिनोवा दैट आर इन इटली. एक रूट ये था, एशिया से आए, पर्शियन गल्फ से होते होते, इराक को होते होते, टर्की को पार करके इटली पहुंच गए, वेनिस और जिनोवा में. वन रूट इज दिस. द सेकेंड इंपॉर्टेंट रूट वॉज द रेड सी रूट. एज वी सी हियर, द रेड सी रूट, ये वाला रूट मेडिटेरियन से जाते हुए, या तो आप यहां से ये रूट लोगे, or the other route is this one, the Red Sea route. How this route worked? The sea traveled to Egypt, then overland to Alexandria, which is a major port city in Egypt, and then finally by sea to Italy. जैसा कि हमने यहां देखा, रेड सी को होते होते इजिप्ट को, देन थोड़ा ओवरलैंड जाते हुए, देन फिर सी के रास्ते हम पहुंच गए यूरोप. And the third route was the overland route, means कोई भी वहां पे आप सी यूज नहीं कर रहे हो. Through the northwest frontier of India, crossing the Central Asia and Russia to the Baltic. ये रूट, ये था थर्ड रूट. फर्स्ट रूट, सेकेंड रूट. These were the three major routes to reach India or Southeast Asia. One route was all land route. Other two routes were sea plus land routes. ठीक है, बट देयर वाज अ नीड कि ये जो रूट्स हैं, धीरे धीरे यहां पर जो लोग थे, जो इनहैबिटेंट्स थे उन रूट्स के, they started to rise the toll. Because when you cross any path, if you are an outsider, if you are using a path, you have to pay tax. And furthermore, there would be problems in the road as well. Sometimes there would be robbers, there would be thieves who will loot you. So these routes had problem because these routes were not free from robbery and theft, and the local region rulers demanded high tax and high tolls for passing through these areas. The Europeans were earlier trading through these three routes, but gradually, when they started to trade more, these people in between started to demand high taxes and high rents. So they wanted to have a alternative route, a route which would be free from taxes, which would be their own route, discovered by them on their own, and it would be faster as well, because via ships you can reach at a faster amount of time rather than by a road, क्योंकि वहां पर उस समय रेलवेज और कार्स ऑटोमोबाइल्स नहीं होते थे. तो शिप्स का रूट उन्हें ढूंढना बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट था इफ दे वांट टू एक्सेल द ट्रेड इन इंडिया एंड साउथ ईस्ट एशिया. ठीक है, तीन रूट्स, इनको ध्यान रखना है अच्छे से. सो देयर वाज अ सर्च फॉर न्यू सी ट्रेड रूट्स. जो वेस्टर्न स्टेट्स थे, वेस्टर्न यूरोपियन स्टेट्स थे, दे सॉट alternative routes to reach Southeast Asia and India. And this search was due to three main reasons. What were those reasons? उस समय टर्की में होता था ओटोमन अपायर. In Turkey, there was Ottoman Empire. Have you heard the name? Ottoman Empire in Turkey captured Constantinople. Which is modern day Istanbul. And Istanbul, you might be knowing that it is a link between Europe and Asia. And this was all about, you see that Constantinople, ये area है where Asia and Europe meets. तो मॉडर्न डे इस्तांबुल जो है, कॉन्स्टेंटिनोपल, बाइजेंटाइन एम्पायर वहां पर था. तो ओटोमन एम्पायर ने जब उसको कैप्चर किया इन 1453 की बात है, 1453 की, and they were very brutal. They demanded high taxes from the traders. They killed them. So the Europeans wanted to bypass the Turkish brutality. Wanted to bypass the Turkish brutality. And how could they do this? By not going through this area. So this became the first reason. The second reason, the second important reason, that as of now, as we saw earlier, Venice and Genoa, Italy, the Venetian and the Arab traders, और अरब तो हमारे यहां पर हो गए, अरेबियन कंट्रीज, यहां पे पर्शियन गल्फ का और रेड सी का इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट था, एंड द वेनेशियन ट्रेडर्स वर रूलिंग. सो दे वांटेड टू ब्रेक द मोनोपोली ऑफ Venetian and Arab traders, because these people were trading through these paths from a very long period of time. And if Europeans wanted to have a connect with them, they wanted help of Venetian and Arab traders. They wanted help from these people to pass from these areas. ऐसा होता है ना, when you want to go into a new area, you will find someone who has already been living in that area or who knows about that area, and he or she demands some fees from you to get you more aware about that particular area. So they were doing same. अगर बाकी यूरोप को अगर ट्रेड करनी थी तो इन्हें ज्यादा पता था. They were asking help from these people. ठीक है. And third reason was a direct contact with India. Direct contact with India and other Asian countries. Why? You wanted to buy something, you wanted to buy a house. You will find for the direct house owner or a broker. The deal would be beneficial for you when you find the direct contact of the house owner and not through a broker, because broker के through आपको चीज महंगी पड़ेगी. Similarly, these were brokers. Venetian or Arab travelers जो traders थे, these were brokers. They were bringing items from India, giving to Europe, or allowing them at a high number of fee to trade with Europe, to trade with India. If you have the direct contact with India and Asian countries, there would be no broker in between and you can gain any number of amount that you want. So they wanted to have a separate alternative route because of these three reasons. Because of these three reasons. Clear? Understood? And in that period, Indonesia were known as Spice Islands. Indonesia were known as Spice Islands by the Europeans. They wanted to get to these islands to trade in spice. These were the three reasons which you can say motivated or inspired Europeans to have new alternative routes. And as I've told you, the Ottoman Empire was very brutal. They increased the taxes, they imposed the restrictions over the trade and made this whole trade very unprofitable. अगर आपको 100 रुपए का सामान यहां से मिल रहा है, बीच में टैक्सेस ही अगर आपके 80 रुपए के हो जाएं, तो आप कमाएंगे क्या? You will be earning very less. So any person gets motivated to do something new only in two conditions, that either he has so much passion to do it और या फिर वो उसकी मजबूरी बन जाए. यहाँ पे मजबूरी बन गई थी यूरोपियंस की to have an alternative route. And what they did to have an alternative route, they started sending missions. And in sending missions, Spain and Portugal were very famous, because Spain and Portugal had the kings which were believing in the seafaring adventures. They were having very well developed naval authorities. Their ships were very strong. So they started to send missions to different areas, and these missions are important. These missions are important. Navigational discoveries and trade expansions. इसी में important point आते हैं that it was in 1487 when Bartholomew Dias, who was from Portugal, he was sent for the first time to discover the new areas. He, for the first time, rounded the Cape of Good Hope, that is in Africa. Do you know the Cape of Good Hope? Rounded Cape of Good Hope, which is located in Africa. ठीक है. He rounded the Cape of Good Hope, that is in Africa, for the first time. Who? Bartholomew Dias. And it was in 1492 when Christopher Columbus, you might have heard his name, he was also from Spain, who discovered America by mistake. He started to navigate He started navigation towards India, but reached or discovered Americas, specifically Northern America. And it was in 1497 Amerigo Vespucci, who represented both Spain and Portugal, explored the South America, and America gets its name from this navigator himself. He explored South America, and America gets its name from him only. Slowly and gradually, they were finding new places to trade, and they were becoming so expert that finally in 1498 it was Vasco da Gama, who was from Portugal, reached India, and he was first to find all sea route to India, where he reached Cochin, Calicut. Sorry, Cochin, not Calicut, Cochin. ठीक है. First to find all sea route from Europe to India. From Europe to India. From Europe. Add this also. Then it was in 1519 a person named Ferdinand Magellan, who was from Spain. He also did some very great addition to the discoveries. He led the first circumnavigation of the globe. He led the first circumnavigation of the globe. Means through water he tried to circumnavigate, he tried to make a round of the all the major land masses through a dedicated route. It was Ferdinand Magellan, and it was Magellan only from Spain who identified the Strait of Magellan, who discovered the Strait of Magellan across Pacific. Strait of Magellan across Pacific. And this was all done through the practices or the exploring nature of the kings of rulers of Spain and Portugal. You see, Spain and Portugal were trying so much hard to have the alternate routes that they were sending missions, and these people were not successful in the first time. It took them multiple number of attempts. There were people before them also who tried to do these things but could not. And finally, these are the peoples who found the right path, and they are remembered in the history for their contribution. You have to keep this in mind, because you might see a question in the prelims examination that how did the navigational discoveries gave the alternative path to the India and Asian countries. Any doubts till here? Any doubts? Any doubts? If no doubt, tell me that what were the impact of navigational discoveries on trade? I'm asking you a question. Tell me the impact of navigational discoveries on trade. Can you tell me the impact of navigational discoveries on trade? What could have happened? As I told you, that there were three major reasons due to which the European countries were looking for alternative routes. Three major reasons. One, they wanted the direct contact, no brokers in between. They wanted to break the monopoly of the Venetian, the Arab traders. Two. Third, that the trade route through the land was not secure, was more costly. There was no profits that were delivered to them due to Ottoman Empire having control of that region, specifically the Constantinople, which is the gateway of Asia to the Europe. So what would these things would have impacted? Number one, there would have been wealth influx. Wealth influx. Because when you are having alternative routes, when you are discovering new colonies, you would be a person reaching to the that place and having opportunity to exploit or harness the resources of that area. So discovery of Americas give them this opportunity. Discovery of Americas gave them this opportunity. The second importance was finding new trade routes, finding new trade routes, more secure, less or no taxes, low or no competitors, opportunity to have monopoly. If you are someone to go first to some place, you would be having the monopoly opportunities in that area. Fine. And if you could establish this would definitely lead to European domination. Because now you don't need the land route, you don't need the assistance of Venetian and the Arab traders, and this would definitely lead to European domination to trade with India and Spice Islands. And Spice Islands. ठीक है? Clear? Any doubts? These were the impact of navigational discoveries on trade. But you should be asking one more thing to me, that why, sir, only Spain and Portugal led these navigation? I've given you a hint, but I will also like to ask you that tell me that what could be the reasons? Why Portugal and Spain led this navigation? What was the main reason? Can you tell me? I have given you hints, I have given you keywords as well, but if you want to write it something in exact one place, try to tell me that why only Spain and Portugal. Give me 2 to 3 reasons. Try to give me. I would tell you that the first reason was influence of Renaissance. Influence of Renaissance. How? ये आप बताएंगे. Second could be royal patronage. These are the keywords that are very important for you. Royal patronage. And third would be naval supremacy. Naval supremacy. Try to tell, please. Please try to tell. And you can add one more, that they had a strategic vision. They had a strategic vision. How there was influence of Renaissance? Influence of Renaissance was in this form, that it inspired curiosity and adventures. Curiosity plus adventures. And it is very much needed to discover so much faraway places that you had curiosity and also a spirit of adventurism. Royal patronage, permissions of kings, of rulers, religious authorities, They gave them permissions. And apart from this, they had naval supremacy or superiority. Shipbuilding was expertised. Shipbuilding expertise. And a strategic vision that they have to bypass the Ottoman and Turks' influence. Bypass the Ottoman, Turks, Arab influence. There was a strategic vision, and this vision was led by Henry the Navigator, who was the king. Henry the Navigator. He led this mission. ठीक है. Now, Henry the Navigator was the prince around 1394 to 1460. ठीक है. And he was son of King John I of Portugal. Prince Henry the Navigator was son of King John Paul the first of Portugal. He liked adventures very much. He liked adventures very much, so he sponsored numerous expeditions to different areas to explore the Western African coast. कि वहां से हम और आगे कहां जा सकते हैं. And not only him, in 1454, the Pope Nicholas also gave the Portuguese the permission to have the Christian missions to different part of the world, because they felt that there is a responsibility over the Europeans to teach or civilize or to give new lessons to the other world as well. ठीक है. And Pope Nicholas V, he granted the Portugal this right, that it will be the right of Portugal. Granted Portugal the right to lead this Christian mission. Right to lead this Christian mission. It was his decision. Fine. Any doubts? But Spain and Portugal came to a conflict that who will trade to which areas in what amount. So to resolve that conflict, they had a treaty which is known as a Treaty of Tordesillas. Treaty of Tordesillas, which happened on June 7, 1494. Between which two countries? Spain and Portugal. Because we had seen that they were Spain and Portugal who were leading different expeditions at the sea to find new areas, new trade routes, so that they can bypass the land routes and they can have their own routes which were free from any theft, free from influence of different regions. So they had a treaty which wanted to resolve the disputes over the new discovered lands. Whenever we go somewhere, when we found something new, there is a need of regulation over it. And that was this regulation. A demarcation line was drawn in the Atlantic Ocean. फैक्ट की तरह से भी इंपॉर्टेंट हो सकता है, अटलांटिक की जगह पैसिफिक दे दे आपको, उसका ध्यान रखिएगा. एग्जैक्ट इसका ईस्ट वेस्ट याद रखने की जरूरत नहीं है. डिग्री, इट वाज 46 डिग्री 30 मिनट्स वेस्ट ऑफ ग्रीनविच मेरिडियन टाइम. And what it looked like? It looked like this. This is the demarcation line, which was established in 1494. And it was said that the key provisions of this treaty, that to the west of this demarcated line, the control would be in hands of Spain, and to the east of this line, the control would be in the hands of Portugal. And this was Atlantic Ocean. सर हाउ टू रिमेंबर दिस कि वेस्ट किसका था ईस्ट किसका था? याद रखना है तो इसको याद रख सकते हो आप ऐसे, पोर्टुगल और ईस्ट। 1498 में इंडिया में कौन आया था? वास्को डी गामा। वास्को डी गामा क्या था? पोर्टुगीज था। तो 1494 में किसको राइट मिला होगा टू ट्रेड विद ईस्ट? पोर्टुगल्स को। ऐसे आप सिंपल याद रख सकते हो कि इंडिया में 1498 में वास्को डिगामा हुआ था पोर्टुगीज, तो वो आए थे। तो 1494 में जो डिमार्केशन लाइन बनी थी ट्रीटी ऑफ टॉर्डेसिलास में, अब टॉर्डेसिलास कहाँ है? टॉर्डेसिलास एक स्पेन में जगह है। टॉर्डेसिलास जो जगह है इट इज प्रेजेंट इन स्पेन। ठीक। सो ये उस ट्रीटी के की प्रोविजंस थे कि स्पेन जो है ऑल द वेस्ट ऑफ द लाइन वुड कंट्रोल एंड पोर्टुगल वुड कंट्रोल और टू द ईस्ट ऑफ द लाइन्स। एंड बोथ नेशंस एग्रीड टू अ सिंपल फैक्ट दैट दे वुड नॉट सीज द लैंड्स ऑलरेडी रूल्ड बाय क्रिश्चियन मोनार्क्स, because the Pope Nicholas V made it all the mission a religious mission as well. So you should not disturb the lands which are already controlled by the Christian monarchs. तो वहां पर आपको दखल अंदाजी नहीं करनी है, ये साफ साफ बता दिया गया। इस पूरी बैकग्राउंड स्टोरी से यू मस्ट बी नाउ अवेयर दैट व्हाई एक्चुअली यूरोपियन पावर्स डिसाइडेड टू कम टू इंडिया। ये अंडरस्टैंडिंग बहुत जरूरी है। वी हैव रियलाइज, वी हैव ऑल्सो सीन दैट मेनी ऑफ द classes or many of the notes directly jump to the advent of Europeans and they simply start with the Portuguese and Vasco da Gama. This whole background thing is missed and this is very much needed to understand that why actually this happened. अगर आपको ये समझ नहीं आएगा तो it would be difficult for you to comprehend that why actually they, एक दिन ऐसा नहीं है कि वो सपने से उठे और चलो भाई 1498 में चलो इंडिया को चलते हैं। ओवरऑल बैकग्राउंड स्टोरी जो है वो हिस्ट्री की स्ट्रेंथ है, रूट्स जो है, फाउंडेशन जो है वो बहुत जरूरी है। ठीक है, यहां से अपने को इतना याद रखना है। एंड फाइनली नाउ वी वुड बी टॉकिंग अबाउट द पोर्टुगीज रूल इन इंडिया। जो मंडे से क्लासेस होंगी ऐप के अंदर, द नेक्स्ट फुल वीक वुड बी डेडिकेटेड टू द रोल ऑफ यूरोपियंस इनटू इंडिया। द मॉड्यूल 2 की जो हमने बात करी थी, मॉड्यूल 1 जो है वो इसी के साथ खत्म हो गया था। अब हम आगे की तरफ बढ़ेंगे, जब पोर्टुगीज की बात करेंगे, ब्रिटिशर्स की, डच, फ्रेंच, डेन्स, व्हेन दे केम, व्हाट दे डिड, व्हाट वर देयर इंपॉर्टेंट कॉन्ट्रीब्यूशंस, क्वेश्चन कहां से आते हैं, उसको रिलेट करते हुए हम आगे बढ़ेंगे। ठीक है, यहां तक कोई डाउट? एनी डाउट स्टिल हियर? एनी डाउट्स? ठीक है, नाउ वी आर स्टार्टिंग विद द पोर्टुगीज रूल इन इंडिया, जिसका आपको इंतजार था पिछले 1 घंटे से, वो अब होगा क्योंकि बैकग्राउंड स्टोरी चेक देना बहुत जरूरी है। इन द एंड ऑफ द 14th सेंचुरी, इन द एंड ऑफ द 15th सेंचुरी एंड स्टार्टिंग ऑफ 16th सेंचुरी, 1498 से और 15th सेंचुरी के स्टार्टिंग में यह देखा गया that Portuguese were having an edge to trade with India, and European traders and the soldiers entered Asian territories through various routes to establish their trade dominance. Traders and soldiers entered Asian territories to establish control. There were many attempts. 1498, 1501, 1502 में वास्को डिगामा जी फिर भारत आए. So they were attempting to have different control over different areas. But Portugal was leading this whole movement because Vasco da Gama discovered the path for the first time, and they were leading this movement because Vasco da Gama discovered the path. ठीक है. And along with the factor or they were having majorly two missions. One, there was trading, and there was also a Christian mission to spread their religious beliefs, how Christianity is superior to other religions. And their primary goal was monopoly over spice trade. Monopoly over spice trade. This was their primary goal. Fine. For the first 15 years, जो पोर्टुगीज थे, उन्होंने अरब मर्चेंट्स को, अरब ट्रेडर्स को हटाया. They were able to defeat the Arab merchants, and they got significant control over few areas like Kochi, Goa, Diu, Daman. वहां पर उन्होंने अपना एस्टैब्लिशमेंट किया. Successful in removing Arab merchants, and gain control of Kochi, Goa, Daman and Diu. First focus इनका इन एरियाज पे था. And how did they do this? They did this with able generals, able commanders who came after Vasco da Gama. But gradually there were more competitors. Then the Dutch came, Britishers, Danes and French. So they started fighting with each other as well. So Portuguese rule in India was started with the advent of Vasco da Gama. Now we have to talk about Vasco da Gama, that how he arrived in Calicut, Cochin, with 3 ships guided by a Gujarati pilot, Abdul Majid. This name you have to remember. कई बार ये पूछ लिया जाता है that the pilot of the Vasco da Gama ship was from which origins. तो गुजराती पायलट थे जिनका नाम था अब्दुल माजिद. ठीक है. Now when Vasco da Gama came to India through this route, all sea route, Calicut, ठीक है, the trade was handled by Arab merchants. Arab merchants had monopoly. Because this entire Indian Ocean region was controlled by them, and these were the old trade routes. So they had control over that period. So now the King Zamorin he welcomed Vasco da Gama with open hands, because he was troubled with these Arab merchants and he wanted a competitor so that the monopoly of the Arabs would be toned down, and when they would be having some competitors, it would be beneficial for King Zamorin to have the supremacy and the rule in that particular area. So King Zamorin welcomed whom Vasco da Gama with open hands because he opposed the Arab monopoly. Welcomed Vasco da Gama, I am writing VDG, as he opposed the Arab monopoly. ठीक है, वास्को डिगामा काफी खुश हुए बिकॉज वास्को डिगामा ऑन अराइवल ऑफ to India, he realized that there is a huge potential of trading in India. He stayed there for 3 months, and the items which he took from India gave him profit 60 times of the cost. Gave him profit 60 times of the cost. When he returned back to Portugal, he got 60 times the profit of the earlier trades. इतना ज़्यादा उनको फायदा हुआ तो डेफिनेटली वो तो आएंगे ही. And when he informed this, there was a whole mission that were sent to India and Asian countries. Whole mission was sent to Asian countries. And till 1869, when this Suez Canal was made in 1869, this was the only route which allowed the European countries to trade with India. उससे पहले और कोई रूट नहीं था. यहाँ तक सी तक जाते थे पहले, सी के बाद लैंड पे जाना पड़ता था. 1869 में जब सुएज कनाल बना तब जाके ये जो ट्रेड रूट पुराना है ये टूटा. तो हम देख सकते हैं द इम्पोर्टेंस ऑफ दिस ट्रेड रूट विच वॉज डिस्कवर्ड बाय वास्को डी गामा, दैट वॉज अराउंड 370 years back from this time. ठीक है, any doubts? Any doubts? Now, as we know that there were other missions sent to India as well. So one such mission was led by Pedro Alvarez Cabral. Pedro Alvarez Cabral, जो कि 1500 में आए just after the Vasco da Gama, he is attributed to have the first trading center or first European Portuguese factory in India. He established the first factory of Portuguese in India. Where? In Calicut. This is a fact that you need to remember. He reached Calicut to trade for spices and establish Portuguese first factory in India. But when he did this, there was a conflict with locals. Why? Why would the locals conflict with him? Can you tell me? Earlier, when there was King Zamorin, he welcomed Vasco da Gama because he wanted to have some opposition to the Arab merchants. And he knew that Vasco da Gama is for just trade, he will go back and he will be a just trader only. But when Pedro Alvarez Cabral came to India and established a factory, factory का मतलब देखिए उस टाइम पे क्या होता था? Factory meant a storehouse. This is not something कि वहां पर production हो रहा है just to have a storage house. When he established the factory, the locals realized that they are trying to claim the territory of their area, and that is not acceptable. और जब वो acceptable नहीं है तो ये conflict में आ गए locals के साथ, locals of Calicut. They opposed the opening of the factory and they attacked the factory. But in retaliation, Cabral was an able commander. He seized the Arab ships and killed hundreds and buried the vessels and burned the vessels. Cabral ने क्या किया? Cabral seized the Arab ships killed hundreds, and burned the vessels. And when in 1501 the Portuguese king Manuel I, he assumed the title of Lord of Navigation, Conquest and Trade, and he would do this over Ethiopia, Arabia, Persia, and India. This could be an important fact as well, because when Pedro Alvarez Cabral went back to Portugal, he came with the news that these people were not allowing them to have the centers or the trading centers or the factories. So this King Manuel I took the title himself, that Lord of Navigation, Conquest and Trade over Ethiopia, Arabia, Persia and India. That he would be establishing his own empires at that places as well, because it was influenced by, we can say that they were influenced by the religious missions. It was their duty. It was their duty to have control over this period. So he took it very seriously. And this should be also noted that until 15th century, whoever came to India, multiple traders and multiple merchants came to Indian ports, but no one claimed exclusive rights over these ports. इस पोर्ट से ट्रेड करने का राइट केवल मेरा है. But in 1502, when Vasco da Gama again came back to India, again when he returned, he aimed to exclude Arab traders but failed as Zamorin resisted. The person who welcomed him 4 years back is now resisting. Why is he resisting? Because Portuguese were demanding sole rights in the Calicut. Why he resisted? Portuguese were demanding exclusive rights to trade at Calicut port, and this was a danger bell to Zamorin, that if they would give the exclusive right, there would be more fightings, more war in that particular area. The local citizens might not like that situation, and what would happen? That there would be chances that Portuguese might claim these territories and they can colonize India. This could be the case. And when Zamorin resisted, Vasco da Gama declared war on all the ships in the Arabian and the Indian Ocean. What happened when Zamorin resisted? In response, Vasco da Gama declared wars on all ships in Arabian Sea and Indian Ocean. This was in response of Zamorin being resistant to grant them these areas. So from that point of time, the Portuguese became with such a nature that they wanted to rule those particular areas. And they started to send different governors to India, and the first such governor was Francisco de Almeida. Francisco de Almeida. He was the first governor and the viceroy of Portuguese in India. He was the first viceroy and the governor of Portugal in India. Viceroy means representation of the crown. जो वहाँ के किंग और क्वीन थे, उनका डायरेक्ट रिप्रेजेंटेशन था, जो कि इंडिया में अपना रूल जो है चला सकते हैं ऑन बिहेस्ट ऑफ दोज रूलर्स. ठीक है. एंड ही हैड क्लियर गोल्स. He wanted to strengthen Portuguese trade in India and weaken the Muslim merchants. Weaken the Muslim merchants in that particular area. Weaken the Muslim merchants in that particular area. And one such battle happened in that particular area during his time was 1509 की Battle of Dew. क्लियर एम था पोर्टुगीज की ट्रेड को प्रोटेक्ट करना, स्ट्रेंथन करना एंड जो मुस्लिम मर्चेंट्स हैं, मुस्लिम ट्रेड है, उन्हें कम करना. और ये कैसे हो पाता? बाय हैविंग कंट्रोल ओवर गल्फ ऑफ एडन, गल्फ ऑफ हॉर्मूज, जिसे उस टाइम पे हॉर्मूज कहा जाता था, ठीक है, और साथ ही साथ द एरिया ऑफ मलक्का, मलक्का जो कि इंडोनेशिया की तरफ जाता है, यहां पर उनका कंट्रोल इंपॉर्टेंट था, तभी वो मुस्लिम ट्रेड्स को रोक पाते, मुस्लिम मर्चेंट्स को रोक पाते. और इसी के लिए इनकी निगरानी में, इन द मॉनिटरिंग और इन द लीडरशिप ऑफ फ्रांसिस्को डी अल्मीडा, द बैटल ऑफ ड्यू हैपेंड इन 1509. और उसमें क्या हुआ? ही डिफीटेड द कंबाइंड फ्लीट ऑफ इजिप्ट, गुजरात एंड कैलिकट. He defeated the combined fleet of Egypt, Gujarat and Calicut. He defeated the combined fleet of Egypt, Gujarat and Calicut. And इसका रिजल्ट क्या हुआ? Decline in influence of Ottoman Turks in Indian Ocean. You have to remember this battle, the governor who was leading this battle, किसके अगेंस्ट थी और इसका इम्पैक्ट क्या था. क्वेश्चन यहीं से बनेगा, ऐसा बनेगा. बैटल का नाम, बैटल का साल, द पोर्टुगीज गवर्नर हु वाज द इन द अपोजिशन पार्टी एंड व्हाट वाज द रिजल्ट और व्हाट वाज द इम्पैक्ट ऑफ दिस थिंग. ठीक है, फाइन, क्लियर है इतना? He is also attributed to start a blue water policy which talked about the naval supremacy over the land encroachment. Naval supremacy over land conquest. क्योंकि he believed that if you are good at seas and India having such a vast coastline, so you would be protecting the seas first. You don't have to focus too much on the land. But he was failed in expanding this policy. He was failed in expanding this policy, but this policy was started by Francisco de Almeida. Simple question can be asked to you in the examination that who started or who was the Portuguese governor when blue water policy started. ठीक है? Apart from that, he introduced the cartage system as well. Do you know what is cartage system? Do you know what is cartage system? It was trade license for ships. Trade license for ships. Trade licenses for ships. Fine. Any doubts? Trade licenses for ships. So this can be asked, what is the name or what is the meaning of this term? Cartage system. Who started it? Now, after having seen the Francisco de Almeida, his legacy was taken forward by another governor whose name was Alfonso de Albuquerque. Whose name was Alfonso de Albuquerque. He held this place of governorship from 1509 to 1515, and there were three key conquests that he took place. In 1510, he captured Goa with help of Vijayanagar kingdom. Can you tell me which Vijayanagar king was ruling at that point of time? Which Vijayanagar king was ruling at that point of time when Alfonso de Albuquerque captured Goa with help of Vijayanagar kingdom? Can you tell me who was ruling? This would be your homework, or if you know, you can tell here in the comment section who was ruling Vijayanagar Empire at that point of time. बिकॉज उस टाइम तक मुगल सल्तनत या फिर मुगल एम्पायर की शुरुआत तो हुई नहीं थी. एंड ही कैप्चर्ड गोवा फ्रॉम सुल्तनत ऑफ बीजापुर. एंड हु वर रूलिंग इन द बीजापुर? दे वर आदिल शाहीज. In the first lecture itself, I have told you about the how to remember those things, and it was ruler Imad Adil Shah. Imad Adil Shah was ruling. Sorry, it was Ismail, not Imad. Ismail Adil Shah. Ismail Adil Shah was ruling, and how to remember this? Ahmednagar Nizam Shahis, Bijapur आदिल शाहीज, गोलकोंडा कुतुब शाहीज, बेरार और बीदार में बारिद शाहीज और बेरार में इमाद शाहीज. Here was Ismail Adil Shahiz. In 1510 he captured Goa. In 1511 he took Malacca, captured Malacca. The vision of the Almeida was completed by him. He captured Malacca Strait. And in 1515, he did one more important act, that was he secured the Hormuz in the Persian Gulf. This was also the aim of Almeida. So now the Portuguese did not only had the control over the all sea route to the India and the Asia, they also had the significant control over the international choke points and also the Hormuz, which was in Persian Gulf, Strait of Hormuz, and they could control the other routes of the trade as well. Now he followed some very interesting policies. He was not only interested in trading and establishing his control over areas, he wanted to change the demography of the area as well. How would he do it? He promoted the marriages between Portuguese men and the local women to integrate the population, the communities in a better manner. Because now there would be rise in the Portuguese population in that area, and still you can see the influence of Portuguese in the region of Goa. गोवा में पोर्टुगीज कल्चर बहुत फेमस है. ड्यू टू दिस फैक्ट दैट फ्रॉम दैट पीरियड इटसेल्फ 1510 से he started to have mixed the population, so it led to a demography change of that region. Demography change होने लगा उस एरिया में. And the most important fact of his entire rule was that he banned a very important social evil in Goa. Can you tell me? Can you tell me the name of that social evil which he banned in Goa? Anyone? Can you tell me the name of that social evil which he banned in Goa when he was having this governorship? So he banned Sati in Goa. He banned Sati Pratha in Goa. What was Sati? Sati was a practice. Very good, very well answered. Sati was a practice when the wife, or you can say the widow, would burn herself into the pyre of the burning groom or the burning partner. When he died, she would also burn herself in the same pyre as a respect, matter of dedication, or what the society told at that time. So he banned that also in Sati in Goa. This is an important point. These are the important points from Alfonso de Albuquerque. After him, there was one more important governor whose name was Nuno da Cunha. Nuno da Cunha. He ruled from 1529 to 1538, and the important thing that he did in this time was that he shifted the headquarters or the Portuguese headquarters from which place to which place? Can you tell? Shifted from Cochin to Goa. Shifted from Cochin to Goa, which made it possible that he reinforced Goa as a center of Portuguese power in India, and that's why we see the influence of Portuguese in the Goa as all even today. Even today we see the influence. तो अभी तक क्लियर है क्या पढ़ लिया हमने 1498 में वास्को डिगामा 1501 में कौन आया कैब्रल 1502 में अगेन वास्को डिगामा देन वी सॉ अल्मीडा देन वी सॉ अल्बुकुर्क and then we saw Nina da Cunha. ठीक है क्या इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट शिफ्टेड हेडक्वार्टर्स कोची टू गोवा दिस वन बैंड सती कैप्चर्ड गोवा he was known for blue water policy कार्टेज सिस्टम ठीक है पोर्टुगीज के आने तक अभी हमने इतना किया रिवाइज फाइन अब लेट अस टेक अ लुक एट द टू मेजर पोर्टुगीज ट्रेड कंट्रोल मैकेनिज्म वन वाज कार्टेज सिस्टम वन वाज काफिला सिस्टम so कार्टेज सिस्टम वाज अ ट्रेड लाइसेंसिंग और ट्रेड परमिट सिस्टम which was introduced by Portuguese. And the sole purpose of introducing this thing was to regulate the trade and tax the trade in the Indian Ocean. Because from where do they will get the money and the revenue? They did not want to leave anything. Trade से तो profit हो रहा है, but when you have a control over a particular area, you have identified or discovered a new route the other people would also be using. And the better way is to let the other people use and have taxes from them. They would give the trade permits that Indian ship captains would have to purchase these permits for going to the non-Portuguese destinations. What was this system? That the Indian ship captains had to purchase these permits to go to non-Portuguese destinations. And if they don't have the permit, no permit would lead to a seizure, seize the ship, punishment. They were tax the trade in Indian Ocean. This was system all about. ठीक है. And the another system was that the काफिला system. काफिला system क्या कहता था? As the name suggests, what do you call kafila in English? Convoy. Convoy system. To protect a group of merchants, traders, ships, the Portuguese would be providing them with protected vessels around them, so that in the entire route there would be no threat to those group of merchants under the protection of the Portuguese ships, Portuguese vessel. They would be going with them, the trade would be done, and they would be coming back. There would be no attacks. A protection text was given, a protection system. ठीक है. Merchant ships to be protected by Portuguese vessels. This was the kafila or the convoy system, a sort of security to traders. Sort of security to traders. Fine, clear? Any doubts? These were the two important systems that were moved by these people. Fine. Any doubts till now? Now we are left with some few other things. Like after this, we would be talking about, we have done till Portuguese trade control mechanisms. Now in the further classes, we would be talking about how Portuguese established their control over Gujarat, how Portuguese established their control over Basai, what was their relation with the Marathas, what were their relation with the Britishers, and how Britishers expelled them from different territories. In the further classes, from Monday onwards, we will be talking about these things. So, we would be winding up our lecture with this thing, and from the Monday onwards, we will be talking about the Portuguese expansion in India and further different Europeans, how they came, what they contributed, and so on. And before ending this lecture, let us take a look upon the previous year questions that might be important. Try to solve this question. It was asked in CDS Combined Defense Services History 2007. Who was Francisco de Almeida? Try to answer. Who was Francisco de Almeida? Anyone? Was he a Dutch viceroy? Was he a Portuguese viceroy? Was he a French viceroy or an English viceroy? He was definitely a Portuguese viceroy. So you would be able to answer these questions only when you have read the things in a chronological manner and you know the stories behind these things. Fine, very well answered. Next question. The blue water policy was introduced by the Portuguese leader. किसने करी थी blue water policy? Asked in CAPF. Almeida, Albuquerque, Francis Caron, Francis Martin. Who introduced the blue water policy? क्या थी blue water policy? A sort of naval supremacy over land conquest. And the answer is very good. No. किसने क्या बताया? बी क्यों बता रहे हो आप? सेकंड का बता रहे हो, फर्स्ट का बता रहे हो? आंसर वुड बी अल्मीडा ना. अल्मीडा ने किया था. अल्बुकुर्क ने तो कॉन्क्वेस्ट किए थे, गोवा को कैप्चर किया था, सती प्रथा को बैन किया था. आंसर वुड बी अल्मीडा. अल्मीडा है आंसर. कैसे भूल गए? फाइन. अल्बुकुर्क ने क्या किया था? 1510 में गोवा कैप्चर. ठीक है. 1511 में हॉर्मूज या मलक्का, मलक्का 1515 में हॉर्मूज, ये किया था सुल्तानेट ऑफ बीजापुर से कैप्चर। इस्माइल आदिल शाह, ठीक है, क्लियर, फाइन। एंड लास्ट क्वेश्चन से कुछ चीज दिखाना चाहता हूं मैं आपको, जो चीज मैंने कल भी दिखाई थी आपको। सीडीएस का एग्जाम ईयर है 2006 का, सीडीएस का एग्जाम ईयर है 2021 का। एंड सी द क्वेश्चन, द ट्रीटी ऑफ बसई 1802 वाज साइंड बिटवीन, मैं बता देता हूं, अभी हमने पढ़ा नहीं है इसको, वी वुड हैव कंप्लीटेड दिस। द ट्रीटी ऑफ बसई जो थी वो हुई थी मराठास और ब्रिटिशर्स के साथ, मराठास और ब्रिटिशर्स के साथ। जब हम बसई की बात करेंगे तो वी विल बी टॉकिंग अबाउट दैट। इट वॉज मराठास एंड ब्रिटिश, एंड मराठास में भी कौन, बाजीराव टू, बाजीराव टू। दिस इज द आंसर, मैं आंसर बता रहा हूं आपको। जस्ट टेक अ लुक एट द क्वेश्चन इन 2021, 15 ईयर्स बाद में। विच मराठा स्टेट्समैन साइन द ट्रीटी ऑफ बसई इन December 31, 1802? बाजीराव। So you have to be ready with the PYQs. You have to study according to the PYQs and the syllabus. You know the importance of that, कौन सी चीज पूछी जा रही है तो उसको और अच्छे से पढ़ा जाए, और अच्छे से पढ़ा जाए। Fine? Any doubts? Now from the Monday onwards we would be focusing upon different Portuguese. Red would not be visible here. Portuguese expansion in India, ठीक है, their conflict with Marathas, Bengal, Britishers, and then finally we will take a look upon Dutch, British, Danes, यानी कि Danish and French. This is the portion from where the maximum questions are asked in the prelims examination, and also there would be a hint towards the mains questions answer as well. So in these classes we would be focusing upon some perspectives and some exam oriented preparation which will help you definitely in the prelims examination and also the mains examination. So that was all from my side. If you have any doubt, feel free to ask anything that you want to ask, then we will wind up the lecture. Any doubts? You have any doubts? Any doubts? Fine. Then let's see you on Monday. We will be continuing with our different topics of modern Indian history. And if you want to connect in any form, you are free to contact the Evolution Educare to know further about this particular course. This was all from my side. Thank you so much. Take care. Keep studying. See you guys. Take care. Jai Hind.